In 1972, a man named B. Wayne Hughes put $50,000 into a dusty lot in El Cajon, California. He built rows of metal boxes with roll-up doors, no windows, no charm, just concrete, gravel, and padlocks. When he died in 2021, Hughes was a billionaire, and the company he started, Public Storage, was worth more than most of the flashy tech names you could rattle off the top of your head. Here is the strange part. Almost nobody wanted to copy him. The ugliest building on the block quietly turned into one of the richest businesses in the country. That is not luck, and it is not a one-time fluke. It is a pattern that repeats in industry after industry, and once you see the pattern, you will not be able to stop seeing it. So here's the question that should keep you up tonight. Why do the businesses that make ordinary people genuinely wealthy almost always look like the ones nobody brags about? Think about that for a second. You were trained to chase the shiny thing, the app, the clothing brand, the business you would post on your feed. Meanwhile, the guy pumping out septic tanks is quietly closing on his fourth rental house. The cost of missing this is bigger than it looks. You spend a decade fighting for scraps in crowded, beautiful markets. 10,000 other people want the exact same thing. You slash your prices just to survive, and then you call the whole mess bad luck. It was never luck. You picked a gorgeous business in a packed room, while the real money sat quietly in the ugly one down the hall that everybody walked past holding their nose. Let's be honest. Nobody grows up dreaming about laundromats or dumpsters. That is the entire reason they pay so well. So stay with me all the way to the end. I am going to walk you through the unglamorous businesses that quietly mint millionaires, the real numbers that prove it, and the strange reason the competition keeps staying away. We will start small and cheap, the stuff you could almost buy this year. Then we move to land, roots, and property. Then we look at what the quietly wealthy actually own and never post about. The last one ties the entire thing together. It is the single idea sitting underneath every example, and it will change how you look at the word boring for good. Let's start at the bottom, with the businesses that are beneath almost everyone's ego. First up, the humble laundromat. Here's what almost nobody tells you about. That box of machines on the corner. The average American laundromat brings in around $142,000 a year, and the net profit margins run close to 28%. That figure comes from Projection Hub's analysis of laundry business tax data. Now, hold that next to a trendy restaurant where owners knife fight over single-digit margins, and roughly half of them close inside 5 years. A laundromat is basically a vending machine you can walk inside, the customer does all the labor, the water heats itself. You show up to empty the coin boxes and swap a snapped dryer belt once in a while. Is it glamorous? No. There is a warm, damp smell that never fully leaves. But nobody with a fresh MBA is racing to buy the laundromat on 4th Street, and that silence is worth real money. Which raises an obvious question. If the margins are this fat, why is the parking lot never packed with competitors? The answer starts to surface with the next one. Vending machines. There are roughly 2.3 million vending machines humming away across the United States, moving nearly $22 billion a year, according to industry data from 2024. Think about what a vending machine really is. It is an employee that never sleeps, never quits, never calls in sick, and never once asks for a raise. You stock it on Sunday afternoon. It sells snacks and sodas all week without you. A used machine runs somewhere between $1,500 and $3,000, which is less than a lot of laptops people carry around. And here's the tell. Nobody posts a proud photo of their snack machine. There is no launch party for a fresh row of sodas next to the laundromat. That total lack of applause is the exact reason the returns survive. One machine is a cute little hobby. 50 machines quietly scattered across town is a route. And a route, as you are about to see, is where this whole game starts, to look like something serious. Which drags us to the ugliest one in the batch so far. Portable toilets. Try saying porta potty rental out loud at a dinner party and watch how fast people change the subject. But the United States portable toilet rental market is worth about $3.3 billion today, and it is projected to hit $5.35 billion by 2030, growing close to 7% a year. That is data from Grandview Research and IBIS World. A single standard unit rents for roughly $130 a week, servicing included. You buy the plastic box one time. You rent it out for years. Every music festival, every construction site, every marathon on Earth needs a row of them. And no ambitious college kid is dreaming about this at night. Let's be honest. The real barrier to entry here is not the money, it is your ego. And your ego might be the cheapest moat in all of business because most of your competition quietly disqualifies itself before it ever shows up to compete. One more small one before we go bigger because it hides in plain sight. Commercial cleaning. The office you work in gets cleaned by somebody every single night, and that somebody signs a contract, not a one-time gig. A mop, a vacuum, and a few reliable people can turn into recurring monthly invoices from a dozen different buildings. There is no inventory to gamble on, and no storefront to decorate. Nobody dreams of scrubbing toilets after dark, which is precisely why the person who quietly builds a cleaning crew locks up steady, boring, repeating money. Notice the theme that is forming here. Every one of these looks like something you would never brag about, and every one of them pays you on repeat. Now, we go bigger. Back to those metal boxes, from the very first sentence. Self-storage in America is a $44.3 billion industry spread across 52,000 facilities, with occupancy sitting near 85% as of 2024. That comes straight from Sparefoot's industry report. But here is the number that should genuinely stop you cold. 11% of American households are renting a storage unit right now this very month. 11%. Think about that for a second. Millions of people pay every single month to store couches and boxes they will almost certainly never touch again. A storage unit is an empty concrete room that mails you a check. You do not stock it with anything. You barely need to staff it. Public storage alone operates more than 3,000 facilities and pulls in over $3 billion a year, off nothing but empty rooms and roll-up doors. The building is genuinely ugly. The cash flow absolutely is not. And the invisible barrier that keeps this quiet is coming up in just a minute. Take the express car wash next, the one you glide through in about 4 minutes. The U.S. car wash industry is worth around $20 billion, spread across nearly 58,000 businesses as of 2024. The express tunnels, the good ones, can run margins above 30% before overhead, and some post net margins north of 20%. That is from industry analysis in 2024 and 2025. Now here is the beautiful, ugly secret hiding in the data. The single largest car wash company in the entire country controls only about 5% of the market. 5%. Around 3,000 companies own just 1 or 2 locations each. Compare that to phones or search engines, where a tiny handful of giants swallow almost the whole pie. In car washes, the room is barely crowded at all. A tunnel of spinning brushes and soap turns a $2 squirt of water into a monthly membership that people constantly forget to cancel. It is not clever, it is not high-tech, it just quietly works, mostly because the ambitious crowd thinks it is beneath them. Then there is the one that serious investors only whisper about at the bar, mobile home parks. A man named Frank Rolfe built a genuine fortune on them, and now he teaches other people how it works. His pitch is refreshingly blunt. You can still buy parks at a 10% cap rate, far better than the shiny apartment towers everyone else is bidding up. And here is the quiet trick that locks it in place. It costs around $3,000 just to physically move a mobile home, so once someone parks there, almost nobody ever leaves. The tenants own the houses. You own the dirt underneath them. You rent out the land and let the ground quietly appreciate, while somebody else fixes their own leaky faucet. 1 in 10 Americans lives in manufactured housing, and most cities have basically stopped approving brand new parks, shrinking new supply, steady demand. That is a landlord's dream wearing muddy overalls. It looks poor from the road. It pays out like a bond you are allowed to raise the rent on every year. Before we leave roots behind, consider the dirtiest job on this entire list: septic and grease trap cleaning. Every restaurant kitchen builds up a tank. of grease that legally has to be pumped out on a schedule. Every rural home has a septic tank that fills up whether anyone likes it or not. Somebody has to drive out, hook up the hose, and haul it all away. It is genuinely unpleasant work, and that is the entire point. The nastier the job, the shorter the line of people willing to do it. You are not competing against 10,000 dreamers here. You are competing against almost nobody for a service that is legally required and endlessly repeating. The truck is disgusting, the recurring invoice is beautiful, then there is straight-up trash. Literal garbage. Waste Management, the name painted on the side of those green trucks, pulled in about $22 billion in revenue in 2024 at an operating margin near 18%. That is straight out of its public financial filings. Every home, every store, every restaurant pays them, every single week, essentially forever. There is no off-season for garbage. It never goes out of style, and it never gets disrupted by an app. You sign a contract, you back the truck up to the bin, and you get paid on repeat until the end of time. The smell keeps the crowd politely thin. The dull routine keeps the money rolling in. Nobody grows up wanting to haul waste, and that is exactly why the people who actually do it end up quietly owning the routes, the trucks, and a slice of half the town's monthly bills. Now for the ones the truly wealthy hold onto and almost never mention out loud. Start with funeral homes. It is the last subject anyone at the table wants to bring up. U.S. funeral services run about $24 billion a year across roughly 29,000 establishments, according to IBIS World's 2026 figures. And one company, Service Corporation International, quietly holds the largest share of it, while most people you know have never once heard the name. The demand here is the most dependable demand that exists anywhere. It does not care about the stock market or interest rates or whatever is trending this week. Grieving families do not sit there price shopping 3 quotes. The buildings are somber, dated, and nobody on earth is posting them to their feed. That flicker of discomfort you feel just hearing about, this is the mode itself. The businesses we refuse to even think about are the ones with the fewest owners fighting over the profits. Then look straight up at the ugly metal pole behind the gas station. Cell towers. Crown Castle owns and operates more than 40,000 of these towers across North America. Here's the genuinely elegant part of the model. They do not sell you phone service at all. They simply rent space on the pole to the companies that do, often 3 or 4 different carriers bolted onto a single tower, each one signing a lease that runs for decades. You build the ugly pole one time, then you collect rent from everyone who needs to hang an antenna up there. It is basically a billboard for radio waves, except the tenants are some of the biggest corporations in the country. You will never in your life see a poster celebrating a cell tower. You just quietly pay to use one, indirectly, every single time your phone screen lights up. One more that the wealthy love and never discuss. Parking. A flat slab of asphalt with painted white lines is one of the purest cash machines in any city. There is no product to restock, no spoilage, and no fashion to keep up with. People pull in, they pay, they leave, and the lot does it all again an hour later. In dense downtowns, that plain gray rectangle can out-earn the fancy retail sitting right next to it. It is the least interesting thing you will pass all day, and somebody is getting quietly rich off every car that rolls in. Now let's be honest, because this is exactly where the highlight reels quietly lie to you. Ugly does not mean easy, and it definitely does not mean safe. Boring businesses can still bury you completely. A laundromat in a dying neighborhood is just a room full of rusting machines and a lease you are still on the hook for. That 28% margin quietly assumes the machines actually run and the customers actually show up, and they do not always show up. A porta-potty route means real phone calls at 2 in the morning and a service truck that dies in the July heat. Storage looked absolutely bulletproof, and then developers overbuilt it in dozens of cities at once, occupancy slipped, and average rents actually fell around 15% year over year in 2024 in some markets. Even trash has brutal union fights and equipment that costs an absolute fortune to replace. So the lesson is not that ugly is somehow magic. The lesson is that ugly clears out the lazy competition for you, and then it still turns around and demands that you do the boring work well. The moat only protects you after you have actually done the unglamorous part right. So here's the last one, the single idea that quietly ties every example together. It's not one thing. It is not storage, or trash, or toilets, or towers, or parking. It is the shape hiding underneath all of them at once. Every one of these businesses collects small, repeated, unglamorous payments from people who barely even notice they are paying. $85 for a storage unit, $130 for a toilet. A few quarters dropped into a dryer. Nobody actually feels it. Everybody quietly pays it. And because the work itself looks beneath us, the smart, ambitious, credentialed crowd strolls right past it, which leaves the entire field wide open for whoever is willing to look a little uncool. Here's what almost nobody tells you. The ugliness is not a flaw in these businesses. The ugliness is the security system. It keeps competition far lower than you would ever expect, and low competition is precisely where durable, boring money lives for decades. Then comes the part that actually compounds into real fortunes. You do not spend those small payments. You feed them straight into the next ugly box. The laundromat buys the vending route buys the storage units buy the raw land. You stack boring thing on top of boring thing until one day the pile is quietly enormous. That is exactly what Wayne Hughes did with $50,000 and a field of metal doors. Remember him from the very start? Here's the whole thing compressed into a single line. Wealth is built by owning ugly things that pay you a little over and over while everyone else chases pretty things that pay nothing. The people who truly understood that are quietly rich right now, and almost none of them are the least bit famous. Picture two people who started out in the very same year. Dev raised money for a beautiful app with a slick logo and a real launch party, and the whole room stood up and clapped. Marcus bought one tired laundromat that nobody else even bothered to bid on, then used the quarters to buy a second, then a small storage lot out on the edge of town. For a good while, Dev looked like the obvious winner. He had the photos, he had the applause, he had the story. 10 years later, the app is a dead link nobody remembers, and Marcus owns 4 genuinely ugly buildings that pay him whether he bothers to show up or not. Same exact start, completely opposite ending. It is the identical move Wayne Hughes made in that dusty field in Elcation, back when a row of metal boxes looked like absolutely nothing. The richest owners are almost never standing in the prettiest rooms. They are out back, next to the dumpster, quietly counting a thick stack of small and boring checks. If this quietly changed how you see boring, share it with one person who needs it, tap like, and subscribe for more.